Welcome to the Freedom to Learn podcast. I'm your host, Ginny Gentles. This season, we're diving into what it means to return education to states, communities, and families. And we're exploring what becomes possible when education is freed from union dominance and federal control. Lauren May joins the podcast this week to dispel education freedom myths, explain how Florida became a national leader in education choice, and discuss what to expect from the new federal scholarship tax credit. We delve into Florida's school choice history. The state created small, targeted scholarship programs almost 25 years ago and now serves more than 500,000 students with universal education savings accounts and other programs. We also talk about how scholarship funding organizations work, why Florida's Catholic school environment is growing, even in a competitive environment, and how families are increasingly customizing learning. Lauren May is Director of Advocacy at Step Up for Students, the nation's largest scholarship granting organization, and a former principal, teacher, tutor, soccer, and swim coach. She's also the mother of 2 school-age children enrolled in Catholic schools. Lauren May, welcome to Freedom to Learn.
Thank you. Hi, it's great to be here.
You're a former educator and school leader. What prompted your transition from the classroom, from the school, and into education freedom advocacy?
Oh, I love talking about that. So when I was in college, I planned to be a lawyer. I was going to go to law school at the University of Florida, go Gators. And then I started teaching Sunday school. And something started tugging on my heartstrings, and I felt like God wanted me to move in a different direction. So I decided to change my major and go into education. So after I graduated, I moved back to Jacksonville, Florida, where I was born and raised. And I worked at an inner city Catholic school where all of our students attended on a scholarship. And I knew that the scholarships made them eligible to go to that school, and without them, our school wouldn't be able to be open and the kids wouldn't be served. And our kids did really, really well when they graduated from our school. They went on to graduate high school, and many of them to college and beyond. So it was a very exciting place to work, and I loved it. And then I later became the principal of that school. And so I just really enjoyed working with the students and families at my school. They are so amazing. But I knew that without choice scholarship programs, they would not have had the ability to attend that school. And so when I started learning a little bit more about Step Up for Students and what they do, which is provide scholarships for kids in private school back then, and now we even serve a lot of students who are homeschooled or on the personalized education program, which I'm sure we'll get into, I thought, wow, this sounds really intriguing, and I would love to come and work at an organization where I can impact even more kids to have choices and options. And so I moved to Step Up about 7 years ago, and it has been the most amazing journey to be here and to watch so many students and more every year becoming eligible and using a scholarship to find the educational setting that best meets their needs. And so it's a really true honor to be here. And I feel like every day I'm not only working for the students who attend my school where I used to work, but I'm working for families all across the state and even sometimes across the nation.
Well, and quite a few families across the state, and we'll delve into the numbers as we talk about the Florida story. But let's talk a little bit more about Step Up for Students and what that organization is. Let's start with the basics. What's a scholarship granting organization, an SGO? That's a term we hear a lot these days.
Yes. So a scholarship granting organization is an organization that serves to help kids on scholarship programs. And so in Florida, we actually call them scholarship funding organizations, but it's pretty much the same thing. So our mission is to give families options to choose the educational setting that best meets their needs. And the way we do that is we either raise money or we receive money from the government, depending on which program we're talking about. And then we allow families to have scholarships to either send their child to the private school of their choice or to homeschool or do personalized education learning. So it's really an amazing place to work. And our goal is to give as many families as many options as possible.
So Step Up for Students is kind of more than a simple scholarship granting organization or scholarship funding organization. It seems like there's more to it. Or is that it? It's a scholarship funding organization?
We are a scholarship funding organization, but that in itself is a lot. So it sounds like, oh yeah, you just get money and move it. No, not really. We actually have to, number one, so we say that we do 5 main things. We work on applications. So is the student able to apply and are they eligible? And then we'll determine them eligible and we'll say, yes, you're eligible. And then then we say, okay, we tell the state, yes, these are the students that are eligible. Then we decide how much money they can get. Then we move it into a scholarship account, which is sort of like a bank account that we manage to ensure that when they are getting dollars, anything that they buy is an eligible expense. So in Florida, there are many, many things that students can buy using their scholarship dollars, but there are some things they can't. The best example would be school lunch. You can't use scholarship dollars to pay for your school lunch, but you can use it to pay for school tuition or for your book fees and things like that. And there's a list of things that they can and can't do. So we ensure that's in compliance. And then when they say, okay, yes, I want to use it for this item, we determine, okay, is that an eligible item? Yes or no? And they can either buy it on our platform. So we have a platform called My Scholar Shop where families can go in and buy things using their scholarship dollars. Or families can go buy things out and about, like at Walmart, and then they can come back to us with a receipt and say, okay, I bought these pens, pencils, and paper, and I want to get my money back for those items. And so then we do what's called the reimbursement process, and we transfer that money back to the families. And so we currently have over 20,000 different types of providers in our marketplace. So that might be speech therapists, tutors, private schools, public school districts. We have all these different types of groups of people and vendors who can accept scholarship dollars and families can use their money with them. And so we also work that part of the deal, which is making sure that they're eligible. And there are lots of different ways you can or can't be eligible to serve scholarship students. And then we also help our vendors who have items on our marketplace to determine what's eligible and what's not, based on each scholarship, because in Florida, some scholarships can get some things and others cannot. So we do a lot and we work really hard and we're very diligent on compliance and making sure that everything is done as quickly and as efficiently as possible, but also as safely as possible to ensure that all of our students are able to get what they need, but also that we're making sure that we keep all of their data and information safe.
Does STEPA play a role in informing families about the options? Like, how do they find out about these programs in the first place?
Yes, so we actually do. We help market the scholarships as well. We also have a call center, so families can call in and ask questions about the scholarship program, or if they have a problem, they can report it to us, and then we work the tickets. And so, yes, we do so many things, but we have worked, so Florida's had a scholarship program for almost 25 years, and so we still, to this day, go out and talk to families all across the state about the scholarship programs, what they do, and find out if their children would be interested in such a great thing.
Well, Lauren, 20 years ago, I actually was in charge of the state scholarship programs at the Florida Department of Education. I ran the school choice office there. And in those days, there was the McKay Scholarship Program for students with disabilities and the Corporate Tax Credit Scholarship Program. And each of them, I think, had about 15,000 participants. There also was the Opportunity Scholarship Program, a very small program that was for students who had been assigned to or attending persistently failing school. But unfortunately, the Florida Supreme Court at the time struck that program down. So those are the 3 programs. The 2 main ones, though, were the ones that we were responsible for. A lot has changed in the last 20 years. And including the program names and the configuration, and certainly the participation numbers. So let's jump forward 20 years. What are the major programs? McKay is no longer, right?
Yes, so the McKay Scholarship was created for kids who had an IEP. So they had a specific disability, and they families could decide if they wanted to either move to another public school or to get a scholarship, and they could either send their child to private school or homeschool using that scholarship. And so McKay turned into what used to be called it started to be known as the PLSA, which stand for the Personalized Learning Scholarship Accounts. Then it changed to Gardner, the Gardner Scholarship, and now it's called the Family Empowerment Scholarship for Unique Abilities. So that scholarship is for kids that have specific disabilities that qualify, and they can use that scholarship for either homeschooling their child or sending them to an eligible private school.
It's been 20 years, but from what I recall, there were adjustments in the allocation to the student based on the level of
Yes,
their
that's
need. Is that
correct.
still the case?
Yep. So the
Okay.
average FESUA, we call it FESUA, that scholarship average amount is about $10,000 per kid, but it ranges based on how severe a child's disability is. So if they need more assistance at school, they get more money. And so it's really an amazing scholarship for so many families across the state. And we currently have over 150,000 kids using that scholarship this year, which has increased year over year over year. And for many years, you probably know, we had a wait list for the FESUA scholarship. But a few years ago, our legislature said this is not right. We should not be requiring families with kids with specific disabilities to have to wait to get a scholarship to put them in a place where they're going to succeed. And so they were able to allocate more funding for that scholarship. So we have not had a wait list over the past 2 years. And it's been so amazing to see so many families be able to take part in the scholarship and give their kids the learning option that is going to meet their needs. We see kids who may have been in public school and really struggled. Now they're thriving in a homeschool environment, or they're thriving in a private school. So it's really amazing. So that's one scholarship program we have. And then the other one, the second one that we have that's actually our largest, is called the Family Empowerment Scholarship for Educational Options. And so that is for families who have a child that's attending a private school. And every child in the whole state is eligible, as long as they're eligible to attend public school in kindergarten through 12th grade, they're eligible for that scholarship, which has been such a huge blessing for so many families across the state, because they're able to go to a private school that they may not be able to afford otherwise. And so that's been really neat to see the growth. And that scholarship was founded in 2018, and that complements the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship. So the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship is also a scholarship that families can use for private school tuition. But again, we kept having waitlists. Step Up for Students, as an SFO, we go out and raise money for that scholarship. And we raise between $700 and $800 million a year for the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship. But we still had families getting on a wait list because we just needed, there was so much interest. So in 2018, the legislature and Governor DeSantis enacted the Family Empowerment Scholarship for Educational Options. That funding comes through the state budget as opposed to through the fundraising. We still fundraise for the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship, but we also have money coming to serve all the students that want that scholarship. It also comes through the state.
And we should remind listeners that Florida does not have a personal income tax. So
Correct.
when you're
Yes.
talking about raising funds for a tax credit scholarship program, this is not from individual donors. It's from corporations.
Yes, thank you. That's correct. We raise it from corporate donors. Thank you for clarifying. And then we also have the Personalized Education Program. So that program was enacted just a few years ago, and it's for families who choose to educate their child from home, but they want to have a scholarship to help them. And so most of that money is actually funded through the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship. So we raise that money from donors. We give the families, on average, they get about $8,000, and they can use those funds to pay for anything to complement their home education program. So it might be that they're attending some soccer classes and they want to pay the PE coach. It could be that they need curriculum, and so we supply money for curriculum and books. And then some of them are attending, actually a lot of them are starting to attend different a la carte learning options. So they might attend a private school for one day a week, or they might attend a private school for one class a week. Like maybe they're going to go take algebra at the local Catholic school, or they can also attend a public school. So over half of our public school districts now serve as providers for the families across our state who are using the Personalized Education Program and the FESUA scholarship. So that's really amazing.
And there are, I think, 67 school districts in Florida.
Yeah, there's 67 school districts in Florida, and over 35 either are a provider or are becoming a provider as we speak.
Right. So lots of opportunities to participate, both as a family, as a student, and then also as a provider with 20,000, I think you said, different
Yes.
providers,
Mhm.
including private schools and public school districts. Okay, a lot has changed, as we said. So, what do those numbers add up to? More than 30,000 for my days, that's for
Yes,
sure.
it's over 500,000 now. So we serve over 500,000 students all across the state, so that they can have that education option that works for their children. And it's just such an honor and a pleasure. I love working here because I know that we're making such a difference in so many families' lives across the state.
If people are listening to this and they think, okay, wait, that was like a lot of programs and a lot of numbers, where would you direct them to stay up to date on the research, on the data?
Yes, so we have a blog. It's called the Next Steps blog, and you can go visit nextstepsblog.org to get a lot of really good information. It has stories about the families on our scholarship, stories about our providers. We actually just released a white paper today by my colleague Ron Matus, and it's all about Florida's a la carte learning boom. So if you're interested in how I was telling you, families are going to, maybe one class one day a week or one provider 3 days a week. There's a whole paper about that on nextstepsblog.org. And you can also visit our website, which is stepupforstudents.org. That also has a lot of good data there as well.
Well, Ron kindly sent me that white paper earlier today, and I said that he's going to have to come on the podcast and dig in a little because I love talking to Ron. It's his enthusiasm for what he's seen, specifically like educators who are then
Mhm.
starting micro schools and all these other options that frees them up from the bureaucratic system and allows them to work directly with students in a way that they're passionate about and skilled to do. It's really exciting hearing him tell those stories. So we'll look forward to hearing more about Florida's a la carte system and educators who are thriving in a future episode. Lauren, you've done some research and writing yourself, and specifically on how Catholic schools in Florida are growing, which in a way is kind of a miracle.
It is so amazing. And I'll tell you, it's not a miracle and it's not by accident that our Catholic schools in Florida are thriving. We have amazing leaders across the state. We have 7 dioceses in the state of Florida. For anyone that's Catholic, you might find that interesting. And we have 7 amazing, innovative, supportive superintendents who have really bought into the idea that choice is a way to keep our schools open and give our families more options and serve more families. So across the Catholic landscape in Florida, our schools have seen an enrollment increase every year for the past 10 years. And on average, it's a 10% increase. That is compared to every other large state. So the NCEA, the National Catholic Education Association, releases data every year, and they take the 10 largest states of Catholic school enrollment, and they say how much has each of them grown or shrank over the past year. And every single year, Florida is growing. And unfortunately, the other 10 states are not. We see New York is losing enrollment at probably 15% per year. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and even Texas has not seen a lot of enrollment growth in their Catholic schools. They're one of the largest states that serves Catholic schools. So I'm very excited for Texas because, as your listeners may know, they have a new education savings account program going into effect next year. And so I'm hoping that will allow more families across their state to capitalize on a scholarship so they can send their child to a Catholic school. One of the most interesting things to me about the Catholic school data, well, there's 2 things. Number one is that Florida is a very competitive environment for educators and for schools because we have a very robust charter school system, and our charter schools are really amazing. Many of our public schools are fabulous. They have magnet programs, IB programs, helping the kids go into college and take college courses early. We have a very robust virtual school option for families. So what's really amazing to me is with all of these options, we're still seeing our Catholic school enrollment grow. And that's because our Catholic schools have really bought into the fact that they are serving families. They partner with parents. They work closely on what do the parents and the kids in our school need, and how can we make sure we're serving them well, which is really the ultimate goal of Catholic education. And so I just feel so blessed and honored to work with the 7 superintendents here and the Florida Catholic Conference leaders, because they have really seemed to understand what is needed to be successful and to grow your enrollment in a competitive environment.
And when you're talking about schools meeting the students' needs and serving, being very service oriented for their families, that includes serving students with disabilities, right?
Yes, our Catholic schools, I'm really proud to say, have the number of students that are attending those schools using the FESUA scholarship, which is for kids with disabilities. That has increased every year by like 200%. So each year, more and more families are being served who might have a kid with ADHD or maybe a little bit of mild autism. Not very. Sometimes it's not as significant as others, but we even have schools here, Catholic schools, that specifically serve kids with severe disabilities. So you have schools, we call them the Morning Star schools. So they are for children with autism or Down syndrome or other disabilities that may not fit in a typical school. We have schools just for those students as well. And so my kids' school is a really good example of a school. They go to Catholic school here in Florida, of a school that's really serving every kid, because what they've done is they have 2 learning support teachers full time, and one helps students who are a little bit below grade level, and one helps students who are above grade level, and they push into the classrooms during center time and work with those students. And the data that we're seeing with how well they're improving their work is so great, and they're improving on how they're able to learn, and all of the data that we're seeing is really, really great. So they're not the only school that's doing that. There's a personal story of a school that I know of that is doing it well. And it's really such a pleasure to see so many of our Catholic schools serving the kids that want to go there and finding ways to meet their needs.
It's such a misconception out there that private schools, that faith-based schools do not serve students with disabilities. It's quite the opposite. Are there other trends that you're seeing among families who are using these various programs?
One thing that I think is really interesting is how many families I work with who have kids in all different learning options. They may have one child that's in public school and doing really well in a public high school setting, and then they have a child with a disability who's better served being homeschooled using the FESUA scholarship, and then they might have 2 other students who are attending a private school using the FESEO scholarship. And so we have families that are really unbundling the idea that all my kids need to go to the same place and be served in the same way. That's not happening in Florida anymore. We're seeing families say, this child needs this type of setting and this is where they're going to thrive, while this child needs something totally different. And that's been the most exciting thing for me to see, is families who are saying, what does my child need to succeed and how am I going to make sure they get it? And they find a way to do it using our scholarship programs. So that's been really, really amazing to see.
Well, and it can transition, it can change over the course of the child's educational journey. You don't become one thing or the other, a private school parent or a public school parent in a state like Florida. You're
Right.
there taking advantage of the options, navigating those, and ensuring that each of your children at each of the stages has the educational opportunity that best meets their needs. Are there barriers that are still in place in Florida for families who want to access educational opportunities, or is everything now available
So
to
the
them?
barriers that used to exist have really been eliminated, such as in the beginning, you had to have a certain income level to qualify for a scholarship, or you had to attend public school first to qualify for a scholarship.
Mhm.
That has all kind of gone away, thank goodness, because now many more families are able to participate. But of course, we're always educating and helping families know about the program. Even in a state like Florida, I will hear of families on a monthly basis who did not know this scholarship option existed. So we work really closely with our private schools across the state. We have a whole team that serves our private schools and goes out and talks to families and helps educate out in the community about the scholarship programs. And we also have our current families who are really our best supporters and our best best educators for others because word of mouth works really well. And when they find something that works for their child, they're really excited and eager to share it. And so that's been really neat to get to work with so many families across the state who are so supportive and so thankful that they want to share the good news with everybody they know. And on our Next Steps blog that I told you about earlier, we have lots of those types of stories of kids and families who are being served really well and who have turned into advocates for the program. And so that's really fun and exciting to see.
Let's switch gears and talk about the new federal scholarship tax credit, which is a topic that we like to address here on the podcast. Most media coverage focuses on how the tax credit will benefit students in blue states, in states that don't already have state education freedom programs. Is it your sense that students in Florida will be able to benefit from this as well?
Yes, 100%. We are really excited and eager to help implement this program because we believe it's going to help so many families. Number one, our public school families. So students who are attending a public school are eligible for a scholarship to help pay for tutoring or educational materials. So we think that's going to work really, really well, especially with our partnerships that we currently have with our districts. We think that they're going to be really excited and eager to find new ways to serve their students. And then our students that are on scholarship often come to me and say, hey, I don't have enough money to cover high school tuition because high school tuition is often more than the $7,000 to $8,000 that families get for the private school scholarship. And so we think that a supplemental scholarship to go on top of the scholarship they already have will either help families fully pay tuition or pay tuition closer to what the actual tuition of private school is. Or if they're on the PEP scholarship or homeschooled, we're still waiting to see if those children are fully going to be eligible. We don't know because the bill has a couple intricacies that we're waiting on feedback from the U.S. Treasury Department. But for our students in private school, it can either serve to help pay tuition or they can also use it for tutoring and educational options, other educational items that us parents use and pay all the time out of pocket. So we're really excited and eager to implement that program for our families because we think it will either supplement the scholarship they have or it'll be a new opportunity for children in public schools.
You mentioned that we're waiting to hear back from the U.S. Treasury Department on a number of things, and that will come in the form potentially as non-regulatory guidance, but definitely as regulations that will be put out not by the Department of Education. This is not a new federal education program, but by the U.S. Treasury Department because this is a federal tax credit. Can you talk a little bit about the involvement that scholarship granting organizations, or in Florida's case, scholarship funding organizations, are having as part of that rulemaking process?
Yes. So we have I attend many different meetings and discussions and coalitions about this exact topic because there are so many people across the nation that are really eager to make sure we get this program right. And so in Florida, we've been doing choice and choice scholarships for almost 25 years. And so a lot of the calls are, how do you do this in Florida? How do you check that every kid is eligible? What do you recommend we do? And so we're in those conversations. And then when we look at the bill and we have specific questions about what the bill says or suggestions for how it could effectively be interpreted or implemented, we're sharing that with those coalitions who are also in discussion with the U.S. Treasury Department, as are we, to make sure that when the rulemaking process comes out, when the guidance comes out, it will allow as many students as possible across the nation to be served and served well.
I've been telling people that in my decades of working in education policy, I have never seen a topic that has received so many webinars covering it. And so, yes, in addition to the maybe behind the scenes conversations and gatherings and meetings that you're a part of, there are very publicly accessible webinars that are happening by a wide variety of groups to make sure that people know about the federal scholarship tax credit, make sure people who might be interested in starting scholarship granting organizations know how to go about doing that, and to ensure that a variety of stakeholders are involved in the rulemaking process and in the process of engaging governors and to ensure that they are going to opt in. Do you have any advice for like for states that might have governors who are on the fence about participating in the tax credit, how to win them over?
Yes, I would definitely recommend that you bring families to speak to them and share your family stories. So we have families across the state who can talk about how impactful the scholarship has been for their family. But before we got the Family Empowerment Scholarship for Educational Options, we had a woman who's really amazing. Her name is Sharika, and she was sending her 3 boys to private school in Orlando, but she had to pay out of pocket because her kids were on the Florida Tax Credit Scholarship waitlist. So Sharika was actually working 60 hours a week driving a garbage truck in Orlando. She was working double shifts in order to cover the tuition because her kids were on that wait list. And so that story truly impacted so many of our legislators and even our governor that they said, this is not right. We have got to do something to help kids like Sharika's. And so I think that's really important to remember. And that would be my best advice, is to always center your advocacy around the students and around the families whose lives will be changed for the better, and who hopefully when you give them a scholarship, it's going to allow their kids to go on and succeed and change the world for the better. Make sure you center all of your advocacy around the students, because they're the ones that really matter in this. And hopefully, if we can get as many governors as possible to say yes, we'll be able to serve lots and lots of kids who may not have an effective learning environment if it's not for a scholarship.
Final question on the tax credit scholarship. Is there a component of it, like a primary component of the federal scholarship tax credit implementation, that you feel really needs careful attention to ensure the implementation is done properly?
Well, to be honest with you right now, my number one excitement and concern at the same time is how are we going to raise the money? Because the federal scholarship tax credit only allows donors to give $1,700 to get a tax credit. So if you donate $1,700, you'll get that tax credit back the next year. And that's not that much money. We're going to have hundreds of thousands of donors, hundreds of thousands of taxpayers need to understand this program, understand why it's important and how it's going to change kids' lives and hopefully change the world, and also be willing to donate. So to me, that's the number one thing we want to focus on, is what's going to be the most effective ways to get as many people as possible on board to donate so that we can serve as many kids as possible.
Lauren, as we wrap up, I like to make sure that our guests are helping to dispel myths around school choice, around education freedom. What is the myth that really bugs you the most that you'd want to tackle today?
Well, to be honest with you, I think we covered several of them during our discussion, but one of the big ones that I think Florida is a great myth buster about is the fact that when you have scholarships, kids just use them to pay for private schools, and all the private schools get rich, and that's what it is. That is not at all what we're seeing in Florida. We have over 150,000 children using some type of a la carte learning experience in our state, using their scholarship dollars to pay for public school classes, to pay for virtual school classes, to attend a PE class at a private school. And it is so exciting to see that happening. All of that, we call it unbundling. They're unbundling their education so that their kids are getting what they need, and in a way that is going to meet their needs effectively. And so to me, when I hear people talk about, oh, this is just another private school scheme, that is not the case at all. Education savings accounts allow families to really pick and choose what parts of an education they want to use those dollars for. And it's been really, really exciting and enriching to see so many really neat programs popping up across our state. And I'll just very briefly tell you about one of them. In Fort Lauderdale, there's a program called Surf Skate Science. And so kids can go there and they do surf and skating lessons using their scholarship dollars, but it's all tied into math and science. And so what's really amazing is they're learning really tricky math, physics, and things that are even above my head while being outside, and kids are really responding amazingly to it. And so those are the type of things that we're seeing across our state, where people are starting to realize that sitting in a seat and getting taught the same thing for all 20 kids in a classroom may not be effective for everyone. It is effective for some, but not for everyone. And so giving families those options, giving kids those opportunities is really, really exciting. And that's the myth that I would like to bust today, because I believe that choice empowers. Choice gives so many options. And like I said earlier, I really think that if we give families the right choices and the ability to pick them so that their kids can succeed, that's how we're going to change the world.
Love it. Lauren, you mentioned the blog, and we've talked about the organization being Step Up for Students. How can people follow your work?
So I usually post updates on my LinkedIn page. You can find me on LinkedIn, Lauren May. But really, if you follow our Step Up for Students social media pages, we also post updates there. And visiting our blog, which is nextstepsblog.org, is really, really great idea because you're able to subscribe to different listservs, and then you can learn about different things that's going on, and we'll send you emails with updated articles and things like that.
Fantastic. Well, Lauren, thank you for your commitment to education freedom, and thank you for joining Freedom to Learn.
Yes, it was great to be with you. Talk soon. Bye.
Freedom to Learn is a production of the Defense of Freedom Institute. Learn more about our work at dfipolicy.org. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Send feedback, questions, and episode ideas to podcast@dfipolicy.org. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, please follow and review Freedom to Learn on your favorite podcast app and share it with a friend.